Locomotives and Photographic Grey tend to always be popular in model form, and to some extent even on heritage railways. Would also you run them on your layout? And is it actually a proper historic paint scheme to begin with? The paint scheme known as Photographic Grey, not to be confused with a plain wartime grey by the way, stems from the days of monochrome photography, a time in which most railway stock was painted in dark colors. Not only is it near impossible to differentiate between different colors when the varying lightness value is all you have to work with, also the dark paints absorbing most of the light, rather than reflecting it, made it very hard for contemporary cameras to pick out details, even on a brand new sparkling clean locomotive. And the later introduced bright red for the frames of steam locomotives, a powerful contrast to the black of everything else, did not help here either, as early cameras tended to not pick up red tones very well, making them appear much darker than they actually are, often indistinguishable from black paint. All that, by the way, also explains why there's so much confusion and misinformation about old liveries flying through online forums and model catalogs. And I had my fair share of questionable liveries as well. But locomotive factories needed crisp photos for their portfolios, and railway companies for their publicity. And the solution for that was quite simple. The starring locomotive was painted in contrasting but monochrome colors. A light or medium grey base color to show all the intricate details, and black edges and white lining to highlight the overall structure of the machine, often including the wheels. And Photographic Grey was born. While the lining is usually based on the respective railway company's lining, is it often more intricate, and Photographic Grey locomotives were still lined when Germany's national railway, the Deutsche Reichsbahn, had long stopped to line the locomotives. That being said, a photographed locomotive would, however, always receive its proper paint scheme before delivery, or at the very latest before final acceptance. In other words, you might see a Photographic Grey locomotive on test runs, but never in service. Especially as Photographic Grey was not a proper paint job to begin with. It was often a locomotive's undercoat, just with added lining, or even the grey base itself was applied using chalk paint and simply washed away after the photos were taken. And to add to that, the locomotive you see on a factory photograph most likely never looked exactly like that anyway. Yes, even back then Photoshop existed. It wasn't called like that, and the used tools were much simpler, but almost all factory photographs have been heavily painted over to get rid of any imperfections or distracting backgrounds, which is why they often feel so unnatural. So, should you now run a Photographic Grey model on your layout? Well, if you're concerned with historic accuracy, then the answer is a definite no, except if you're modeling a locomotive factory, of course. But if you're simply enjoying the looks of it, then the answer might be yes. But you have to decide that for yourself. As usual, a big thank you goes to my channel members, including Contrian, Dave Heise, Flipschwip, Kay Frankly, Lucas Ilskens, Martin Wigican, and Steamy Player, for helping me to create more models and with them more videos. And if you're now curious about why the aforementioned bright red was introduced, as it was obviously not for the cameras, then watch this video.